All right, so that happened. Yeah, Michael Bryant here for Justice Served TV. Historical day here in downtown Manhattan at Center Street. Yeah, we just had the Daniel Penny matter here just a few weeks ago, and of course this is where the Trump trial took place. But today, the Trump sentencing, it was exactly at 10:07 this morning. If you felt a little something, maybe you didn't. That's when the actual conviction occurred. That's when sentence was imposed, and that sentence of unconditional discharge was expected. It was talked about by the judge, and even the Supreme Court last night at 7:40 p.m., give or take, decided not to get their hands dirty with this mess, to let it play out, to let the 34 counts for which Donald J. Trump, did I mention it's Donald J. Trump, had been found guilty by a jury here in New York, would go to conviction so that, among other things, the president, former and future, could go ahead and pursue his appellate rights. Most people believe, and I put myself in this category, we're not political here really at Justice Served TV, but this is historic and this is legal, so justice served seems to be appropriate to be involved. This thing will not stand up on appeal. That's fine. This may have made some folks feel very good today because now, Joy Behar, you can actually be correct when you say the former and future president is convicted, because you're not convicted until a sentence is imposed. And obviously, that has now taken place. So, interesting scene setter for you here. The courtroom obviously packed just because of the historical nature. We knew that President Trump was not going to be in the courtroom. He had chosen to appear via video, and he did with his attorney. Interesting, I wonder if the Supreme Court might have made a different decision if he was required to appear in person, because you can imagine, I mean, it's a bit of a scene here as it is, but pretty understated, if you can imagine what it would be like if Donald Trump had to appear in person. That might have changed the dynamic because, among other things, the Supreme Court said, look, this is not going to be a disruption to the inauguration coming up in 10 days, the peaceful transition of power. Not going to be a big deal because he ain't going to be here. And because he wasn't, it was pretty sedate, pretty low-key, started on time. I'll give him credit for that, Judge Merchan. But there's a lot of high and mightiness that took place, really on all sides. And we saw it from the beginning of the case, from indictment through the trial, through the jury verdict. Depending on which side you're on, you're absolutely right, and everybody else is an idiot. So that didn't change today. Trump basically said it was the classic witch hunt, that he should never have been indicted, that Alvin Bragg, the current DA, chose not to indict, but then pressure was raised and an indictment ultimately came, despite the fact the DA wasn't going to do it himself. He mentioned, without naming specifics, he mentioned Cohen. As you know, Mr. Cohen was the star witness in the case, mentioned him being disbarred, mentioned him being a very unreliable witness upon which the prosecution based the entire case. So there was some of that continued sanctimoniousness from Donald Trump. And then the court as well made it sound like we're doing you a favor here, pal, that you did all of these things wrong. 34 counts of fraudulent business records. And as you know from this case, in which I believe will be the crux on appeal, those felonies need to be based upon some underlying deceit to be done in furtherance of some other crime. And the fact is, at the court level, at the trial level, there was no real understanding as to what that underlying crime might have been that these fraudulent business records were produced in furtherance of. So, huge issue, again, on appeal. I would be shocked if this case stood up. Anyway, so the judge goes on to say that, yeah, we get it. You're going to be the president. There are certain immunity issues. There are certain supremacy clause issues we need to abide by, but we don't want to ignore the jury's verdict. We aren't going to just wipe that away by giving you the dismissal you've been crying for so long now. And so that doesn't happen. Now we have the unconditional discharge. Sounds almost like a dishonorable discharge, right? But the bottom line means no jail time, no probation period. Really, it's even less than a slap on the wrist, to be honest, because it's almost administrative in nature. Okay, it's now it's official. You're a convicted felon. Okay, so I have to believe that the folks who have been so hot to have that moniker attached to Donald J. Trump getting something from today, I guess. I also have to imagine that Donald J. Trump sitting there saying, screw you guys, what do I care? I'm the president of the United States, so suck on that. But an interesting process, no doubt, to take part in it and to witness this history unfolding. Let me see if I can find a couple of quotes here that were of interest. The prosecution, everybody has their moment to say a little this, a little that. The prosecution called some of the things Trump had said during the course of this matter dangerous rhetoric, that he was making a direct attack on the rule of law, that he felt that he was above the law, that he has since, Donald J. Trump has promised and or threatened the prosecution to retaliate. We'll see what he means by that if something actually does come about in terms of some legal proceedings against those. Malicious prosecution comes to mind as the only more traditional avenue. I don't see that happening. Probation did prepare a report, just like you would for any pre-sentenced defendant, and they posted a report saying that the president sees himself as above the law. Okay, that was from their perspective. The attorney for Mr. Trump, of course, disagreed with everything that was mentioned by the prosecution, said it was not an appropriate case. And both the attorney for Mr. Trump and for Trump himself said, this was that famous word that I'd never heard before, kind of a clever word, lawfare, that this was purely lawfare, that people were in favor of his opponent at the time, Biden, and then Harris, Kamala Harris, and that this was really used to just taint his candidacy. And so both he and his attorney pointed out, hey, that didn't work, since I was elected by an overwhelming majority in both the Electoral College and the popular vote. So they both had those digs to send to the court. And again, that's my version of saying, screw you, I'm the president now. Impose your sentence. Do it. Let's get it over with. Let's move on. And Trump did seem a little sullen at first, but then more agitated when the prosecution was giving their position. He sat there, arms closed, a little more indignant than he was when he was giving his speech. I was surprised it didn't go any longer. He only talked for about 3 minutes, maybe. But when you tell Donald Trump or ask him, "Do you have anything to say?" Katie, bar the door, because you could be sitting there for an hour. I've interviewed the guy a couple of times, and it's like, okay, is it? I don't know about you, but I got to go. So that was much more concise than you might expect from Donald Trump. I think that's those were the high points. It was not very dramatic. It was very expected. But the fact is, this is history, folks. This is history, and those convictions will now wind their way through the appellate system. We'll find out if, in fact, the issues that have been complained of by Donald Trump and his team over the last year and over the last 6 months since the jury verdict have any merit. Or does the case stand? Does he walk out of the Oval Office in 4 years as a convicted felon? That's it. Michael Bryant here in downtown Manhattan. Appreciate you sticking with us for kind of an unusual matter to cover on Justice Served TV, but only you can decide whether, in fact, justice was served. See you next time.